So we're really pleased to have you here. Thank you again for coming on. We're just going to go ahead and introduce ourselves. I'm Eddie, I'm a senior.
I'm Landon, I'm also a senior.
And I'm Grayson, all three of us are seniors.
And could you go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, what's going on, everyone? My name's Campos. I am currently a reporter at ABC 10 News here in San Diego, and I am an SJD alum of the class of 2019.
Okay. So you attended from 2016, 2019, or 2015. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice. And what made you choose SJD for your high school?
I was looking at a whole bunch of different high schools, especially like the ones with top athletics. So I remember, I'm not going to name names, but a lot of the East Bay Catholic schools. And I just remember when I came to SJD, everything that I remember from my first initial visit is just that feeling of family and going to the open house and talking to different students and people. It was that sense of family because it seemed like everybody actually wanted to be at SJD. When you go to the open house, people weren't just like, it didn't seem like students were there just to be there or like help out and stuff like that. Everybody genuinely was welcoming. Everybody was informative. Everybody, again, wanted to be there. And then I just remember my conversations with Coach Lip about the program, about his vision for me, about his vision for the upcoming season and just the 4 years there. I remember I felt like with Coach Lippy, it was the place for me to be because of that welcoming environment that not only just his program and he brought to the program, but just what the school brought as well. So that was the biggest thing for me. It's just that welcoming environment.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think that welcoming environment, did it carry on to when you were actually here?
Absolutely. Like right now, when living in San Diego, I'm living with one of my best friends from SJD, and then a lot of our class. Granted, of course, like any high school class, you have your circles, you have your group that you're with. I feel like our class really was one of the closest classes that we saw during our time at SJD because there were moments of times where the class kind of needed to just come together, and we all did. And even now, 5 years later, we're currently planning our 5-year reunion, and there's excitement for it. A lot of people are looking forward to actually staying close and coming back together to learn what everybody's doing, how everybody's doing. So I would say our class of 2019, it really is a family.
Wait, so SJD does 5-year reunions? I thought it was only 10-year reunions.
We do 5-year, 10-year.
Oh, dang.
They go all the way up the list. So, but I know we're doing our 5-year reunion, so we're looking forward to that.
That's dope. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Man.
Appreciate it.
So can you go ahead and tell us about the state championship game that you obviously won here at SJD? Tell us things like the preparation leading up to the game and just overall what it was like.
The preparation, it started from summer, from the summer coming in as a freshman. I remember just me for myself, I'm coming into a team that has already had players that won a state championship, or two of our guards, Jody Smith and Darnay Duckett, they already won a state title when they were freshmen as well. So they're coming in and they're having a whole new roster that hasn't won, and you're bringing me in as a freshman to start. That's a little tricky sometimes. So it just, all the preparation started from the summer of making sure, as Coach Lippy always liked to say, it was about forming a fist, because if one finger's off and you try to throw a punch at somebody, you're going to break that finger or you're going to break your hand. And it was just making sure all throughout the summer to the preseason training in the fall to the games themselves, whether it was preseason or whether it was during the regular season, going all the way up to the playoffs, the whole emphasis was just trying to create that fist to make sure that we can throw the best punches that we had at everybody when we played them. And it was really just that attitude of being the underdog, honestly. It was making sure that no matter what was happening, that we were sticking together, that we weren't blaming each other on stuff. It was a matter of holding each other accountable as well. Because when it comes to forming a team, all the pieces have to work. And if you have one person that's not buying into what we want to do, that's going to throw off the whole team. And that's where it's talking about that fist. Even if it's just one person that doesn't want to buy into it, then it could throw off the entire season, just with the relationships with each other when it comes to team to player, coach to player, whoever it may be. That's really what the emphasis was, is just making sure that we created, again, that family sense that we're going to be backing each other up. We're going to try to encourage each other as best as we can, but we're also going to make sure that everybody's doing their job, and we're going to hold each other accountable to doing our jobs. And that's really the mentality that we took. And it was also another saying he had, refused to lose, is that no matter what situation we were in, we were going to try to come out on top of it. And having that mentality start from the moment that we started summer workouts, that helped us really lead into the championship game. And I just remember kind of talking a little bit more about the championship game itself. It was surreal because we're in an NBA arena. The fans, I mean, we packed up a whole section of Arco Arena, which was really cool. And we remember too, Coach Lippy, he gave us a very, very heartfelt speech before the game, talking about his father, who he was very close with, obviously, and his father would be at every game possible that he could be. And he passed away right before the season, and we didn't know about this conversation until the day of the state championship game. But Coach Lippy told us before the game, he said, as my father was on his deathbed in the hospital, he told us, hey, I may not be here to watch it, but I think this is the year you guys can do it. And when Coach told us that, it just kind of formulated everything. Yeah,
it motivated
that we had
you guys.
Been through. Yeah, throughout the season. And that, like, hey, there's a reason that we are here at the state championship game right now. And so let's get this done. And we did, and it was Coach Lippy's 800th win. So I just think the storylines throughout all of it and how we came back out to win that state championship game, it was absolutely incredible.
Yeah, that's insane. That's just a great story overall.
Yeah, I mean, you see, like, it was his 800th win. It just lines up perfectly like a storybook. It's just crazy with all this.
It really was, because we were nowhere near the most talented team. Obviously, like we had some great players on our team. Don't get me wrong, but overall, like, we had one guy we always made fun of him. It was Avery. He could barely see when he was on the court, so we didn't know how he was doing what he was doing, knocking down the threes, playing the defense that he was doing. We were a very undersized team as well. Even though I'm 6'4", I was still the tallest guy on the team. And for a lot of championship teams, you see taller players and stuff like that.
For sure.
We're just a lot more, and you just see a lot more talent on teams. But again, because of just how we all bought into it and we understood what we needed to do, that's really what mattered when it came down to it. And that's when we were able to come out on top that year.
Definitely. Do you think you could have like one memory from like in the actual game that you had that you remember?
I remember it was crazy. So it was like 40 seconds left in the game. There we are up 2. And St. Bernard, they come to trap us on all parts of the court. Like it was just full out hustle on the defensive end. And our point guard, Jadi, he got trapped up at like kind of close to mid court. And I remember I popped out to the wing. He throws it to me, and then they try to send a double again towards me to try to get it out of my hand. And obviously I'm center. I don't have the best ball handling at all. So they're trying to pressure me. And I remember I just faked the pass back out to somebody at the top. And then I just drive in and shoot. And most of that time in that situation, you're trying to just hold the ball as long as possible because you want to try to run the time down. Right. But I don't know what possessed me to do it, but I went in, drove, and that actually put us up 4, which gave us a comfort of a lead just right there with what, at that time, maybe 30 seconds remaining in the game. So I'll never forget that, because I remember Coach Lippy, you can see kind of his reaction. He's like, what is he doing? And everybody just kind of like, wait, what's going on? And then I made the layup, and like I said, it gave us that cushion, and then we ended up winning the game 5-4 because one of the other freshmen, Kobe, he ended up coming in because Jadi got hurt on a play, and then he wasn't allowed to come back in. Kobe knocked down the 2 free throws to again put us up by 4 because St. Bernard ended up scoring that possession after I made the layup, and then we ended up winning by 4. So it's like, so just that play alone, I'm like, we could have been going into OT if I didn't shoot that layup. And so I'll never forget that.
That's dope, man.
Could you get into a little more? You talk about a lot of the impact that a lot of your teammates had and your coach, but the role and impact, could you describe the role that you specifically had a little more throughout the game, or just being on the team?
It really is just about being a team. I mean, because I remember nobody had any like individual goal that they had to do, because we knew St. Bernard. We remember it was the very first few possessions of the game. St. Bernard, they were probably just about as tall as us. They weren't a very tall team, but they were a lot more athletic than us. And when we were running up and down the court, we remember they got up quick. So just from there, it was a matter of, all right, all of us came together first time out. We're like, all right, what are we going to do to try to slow this team down? What is each person going to do to try to be able to get our defense to line up, to make sure that they're not getting out into the fast breaks, to make sure that they're not getting off into the lane? And that was the biggest thing for us, since they had a team that was a lot more athletic. It was a matter of us just making sure, again, I'm going to keep saying this, buy into what we needed to do. And in that situation, it was making sure to get them off the 3-point line and make sure that they're not able to get into the lane as easy as well, and make sure they're not getting out into the fast break. Because if they were able to run us up and down the court, we would have lost that game. But because we understood that we needed to slow them down, and everybody knew what we needed to do in that situation, that allowed us to win again. Because if everybody kind of just swayed away, or one person swayed away from what we needed to do, then we're not winning that game.
I mean, you got a lot of advice, and you've just learned a lot from Coach Lippy. I mean, you talk about a lot of your achievements and just accolades as a player. Do you think that would ever translate to you coaching at some point?
I would love to. Maybe. I love my career now. I love what I'm doing. What I'm doing now is what I ultimately wanted to do in my life. But coaching, yeah, it would be fun, just because I know from the experiences at SJD, learning from once in a generation coach. I mean, Coach Lippy, he's one of the top 25 most winningest coaches in the whole United States in high school basketball. So when you get to learn from somebody like that, you definitely have an itch to maybe continue kind of teaching kids about those same values as the basketball players and that same knowledge of the game that you learned from him. So there's definitely a little bit of that idea in the back of my head to eventually coach one day.
Awesome. Well, a little gear shift here. When did you first become interested in journalism?
So it all revolved around sports. When I was 12 years old, that's when I really learned that I wanted to go originally into sports journalism. Obviously, I'm in news now, but it was sports that garnered that interest into journalism, because I remember my first team growing up watching was the A's, and listening to their television broadcasters, their radio broadcasters, just thinking, man, my office could be a ball field or a basketball court or a stadium. Just that idea alone just intrigued me. And then just being able to become and build those relationships with the players and stuff like that, that's what really sparked my interest into journalism. And now that I'm actually able to do the job that I dreamed of doing when I was 12, it's pretty cool. I can't complain at all of where I'm at today.
Do you think SJ&D prepared you, like, academically for college and life after college, your career?
100%. I think my time at SJ&D, especially because of how rigorous the courses are and just kind of the standard that a lot of the teachers and the faculty and staff and just even your own students, of the standard that I feel like our class had for each other and that the teachers had, that helped me really become prepared for school. Because when I got to community college, school was a breeze, I'll be honest with you. I didn't have much difficulty in terms of handling that pressure of kind of being on my own time, or like the block schedule that we had back then. That helped. That's how college is. You have class every other day. You kind of learn that organization skills. You learn the time management. You learn kind of that critical thinking standpoint as well. I think everything that the teachers really did for us there was help us obviously become knowledgeable of the topic that they may be teaching, but it helped us more in the fact that these are skills that we're going to be able to transfer into just everyday life. And I think that's, while the school is considered a college prep school, I think because of the relationships that we had with our faculty and our staff, it allowed us just in general to be prepared for what was going to come after high school. Because that's the thing, while school is focused on like topics and make sure you're good at school, what really helped at SJ&D was the fact that our teachers prepared us for life in general, because we were able to build such a close relationship with them.
Right. And on the subject of SJ&D, could you tell us your favorite memory at SJ&D? If it isn't winning state, what is it?
We have so many. That's the thing. Our class is a trip, and some of them are maybe the not so favorable memories, but it just because of how we did it as a class, it was very funny. I'm not going to speak on some of that stuff right now. If I tell my class, they would definitely know what I'm talking about. but I think just my favorite memory in general was just being able to build the relationships that I did, because even now, it's hard to pinpoint just one. Obviously, the state championship, like that is huge, because I was starter on the team. I was a freshman. It was my first year at high school basketball, so just all of that, and just being able to do it with the group of guys that I did it with, it was cool. But I think just in my time at SJD overall, just with seeing where I'm at now with the people that I'm so close with, and the relationships that I built, even teachers that I'm still talking to on a weekly, monthly, or sometimes even everyday basis, whether it's interacting through social media and stuff. Just the culmination of everything that I experienced at SJD. I'm not the same person that I am today. So
Definitely, that's awesome to hear that you just have so many great memories here. Obviously, we do too, because we're seniors. All the great memories are built up over time. But could you touch on a little bit how that experience at SJD all led to you attending Syracuse?
Yeah, so I'll be honest, I wasn't the best student at SJD. I only had a 3.0 coming out of there. A lot of my focus was on sports, I'll be honest. But when it came down to it, just knowing some of the skills that I learned at SJD from my academics and the time management and making sure that I'm getting things done, I understood that for me to get to Syracuse, I was going to have to turn it up a notch. And it was more so the experiences from playing basketball at SJD because of the prestige that our program had under Coach Lippy. Those same skills, I was able to transfer those into my academics once I got to school, got to college. And being at DVC for 2 years, I know that's not where I'm eventually going to graduate from. That was kind of like a stepping stone for me to get to Syracuse. And I knew if I wanted to get to a top school like Syracuse for my specific field, broadcast journalism, I knew I needed to lock in and get what I needed to done. And understanding that from basketball and the work ethic and the time management, and also just understanding doing things with a purpose, that's what helped me in my studies at DVC and eventually being able to go to Syracuse and graduate from there.
Was going to Syracuse in journalism always the top of your list, or the thing you wanted to do after high school?
It was. Obviously, if I'm talking just academics, yes. Like, Syracuse had been my dream school even since back when I first wanted to get into journalism, because I always do Syracuse basketball. And then I remember we were doing an assignment in middle school, and it's like, all right, search up what you may want to do. And there was one of my teachers that told me, hey, think about sports broadcasting. And at that time, Syracuse was ranked the top sports broadcasting program in the country. I remember just reading that specific article. And once I remembered Syracuse basketball and now Syracuse broadcasting, all right, that was my dream school. So I always knew I wanted to go there when it came to academics. Obviously, I had different aspirations when it came to athletics, but it was pretty cool once I got that acceptance letter for Syracuse that I had the opportunity to go to my dream school. It was pretty exciting.
Yeah. You just mentioned something about this earlier, and you stated on Instagram actually before graduating from Syracuse, the only thing I did to end up here was put in the work and did it with a purpose. Could you tell us more a little bit about what that purpose was?
That's funny you guys pulled that caption, honestly, because that was really just trying, all right, what's a catchy
what's a cool caption?
It's a catchy Instagram post, like what will fit this? And it's a lyric from Western Road Flows, so by Drake. So I was just like, all right, what's gonna fit best for the post? But seriously, when I look back at why I kind of wanted to use that as the post for it, because when I got to Syracuse, I only had 2 years to achieve and to do as much as I wanted to at Syracuse. And when people are at school and college, most of the time they're doing it for 4, so you have a little bit of more time. But I didn't go the traditional route of school. I go into a community college and then transferring to a 4-year. You're decreasing your time at each school. So when it came to making sure that you wanted to achieve what you wanted to achieve whether it was at DVC or at Syracuse, I didn't have much time. I knew it was about hitting the ground running and making sure to get in as many reps as possible. It came to making sure that I'm making as many connections as possible. And when it comes to especially that purpose, doing things with a purpose, one of the things that I really figured out at Syracuse is that reps are always good, and you could take this, and it's transferable. Everything's going to transfer back to my time as an athlete, because it's the purpose is making sure you're doing things with more quality. And while yes, I could have been doing maybe a little bit more stuff, like in terms of more reps at Syracuse for myself as a journalist. Anytime that I did a story, or I did something that was revolved around my time with my clubs and my extracurriculars, I made sure to do it with a purpose. And that's the thing, when you're an athlete, when you're working out and you're training, when you're doing those reps, you want to make sure that you're doing everything with a purpose, because you can shoot around in the gym for 2 hours, but if you're just kind of slacking around, you're just working on one thing and you're not really setting in on how to get better at that skill, and then it's not going to actually serve a purpose for you. But when you're in a gym for an hour and you're actually taking each rep at game speed, and you're taking each rep with the purpose of trying to improve what that skill is, that's going to be more valuable to you than if you're to be in a gym for 2 hours. And it's kind of the same thing with the reps, especially since my field is a lot, and my time at Syracuse with my classes, it was a lot of hands-on work. Any rep that I got, I had to make sure that I did it with the purpose, rather than doing more work and kind of not being able to put my full effort into it and not doing it with that full purpose. So it's always quality over quantity. That's why I say when you do stuff, you got to make sure you do it with a purpose.
Right.
Okay, Drake.
Hey, I'm just saying.
It was a good call.
Yeah, I
You
did
caught
the
us
same
with
thing.
it. Now that you've experienced all these things in your life, going to Syracuse, DVC, SJND, and even in the real world working at Buffalo and now in San Diego, do you think that's, or not prepared you, but would you have anything different to say if you saw your high school freshman self, and any advice you would give him?
That's a fun question. Because it's like I'm not somebody to really think back about the past. I always I'm a very optimistic person. I'm a very half glass full person. So it's kind of just looking always in ways to improve myself, and kind of looking ahead at like, all right, what can be my next step? So when I think about this question, it takes me a second, but I would really say everything happens for a reason. Because if I were to look at my freshman self and kind of what my expectations were for myself as a freshman compared to what I'm doing now, this is a whole different ball game that I'm playing now compared to what I thought as a freshman. So it's just real. I think if I were to tell my freshman self, just everything happens for a reason, just keep working hard. It's as simple as that. Because like I said, my image for myself as a freshman is a lot different than what I am doing now. So it's kind of more so about that point, rather than giving advice of what I could do better. It's more so just that understanding of like, hey, what's going to happen in your life? Like, there's a reason to it. Just stick with it and just keep pushing.
We want to know, what kind of obstacles maybe have you encountered throughout your career, and how did you overcome them?
I'll be honest. Right now in my career, I'm pretty lucky to be in the position that I'm in, especially with this industry, the journalism industry. It's changed a lot from what I have learned, what people have told me, even in the last decade. So I'll be honest. I've had a pretty obstacle-free career. In terms of just my time in journalism, which I'm very lucky to be able to say, especially because like a lot of people, when they start in their career, they don't start in a big city like Buffalo. But luckily I was given that opportunity, and I'm very grateful for that. That helped me get to San Diego this early in my career. But I think the obstacle would just that if there's any obstacles that I face, it's just kind of adjusting to different cultures. Obviously, being in the East Coast, that's a very different culture than living in the Bay Area. And just also the obstacle of just becoming a professional. What you do in college is a lot different than once you get into the professional world. So it's just it was making those adjustments and actually making sure that that I actually am prepared for what I'm going to be doing in the professional world. I wish I could give a better answer for that. I don't really have much that I can complain about, really.
What are some of those cultural differences you touched up on, like in Buffalo compared to the Bay Area? How would you describe
the diversity? The diversity, 100%. I mean, we're lucky to live in a place that is just culturally, ethnically, religiously, in any way, shape, or form, we're lucky to be in the Bay Area because of how diverse the region is, and coming to a place that, especially in upstate New York, is a predominantly white region. It was a lot different because it's a different lifestyle, it's different culture and norms. It's just different practices, like social practices as well, that I guess I wasn't really prepared for, and especially at Syracuse, being a PWI, knowing, especially as a Latino and a Mexican, there weren't many Mexicans up in upstate New York. There were other Latinos, but it's still, each one has a different culture and different practices themselves. So kind of knowing that there wasn't much of what I'm used to up there, it was a lot different. But obviously, again, because being in the Bay Area, since just in general, everybody's pretty accepting of each culture, each norm that everybody practices on a day-to-day basis, that helped me kind of be a little bit more adjusted to that culture shock in upstate New York.
Is the food just as good over there, or would you say the Bay Area food is a little better? The Mexican food, Bay Area food better?
Mexican food can't even compare in the Bay Area to Buffalo. I mean, when I get it at home, I'm definitely gonna say the Bay Area is a lot better.
For sure. What's your favorite Mexican food?
Pozole.
Pozole?
Pozole, 100%. My mom started making it not too long ago, and I remember the first time I had it. I was a lot younger, and then a few years later, I told her, hey, like, can you try making this? And ever since she started making it, anytime I come home or they come to visit me, I need pozole, because then I could just freeze it and then I have it for a lot of time. So pozole is definitely my go-to.
Rojo or verde?
Rojo. I had verde for the first time actually up in Buffalo.
Really?
Which kind of surprised me. Yeah, there was a guy that owned a Mexican restaurant up there. And they served pozole, but it was pozole verde, and I was like, I've never had this, but it was still really
just
good.
Decided to try it.
Yeah, I was like, why not? So it was for a story that we were doing. It was I think it was that Dia de los Muertos story that we were doing, and he had it. He was giving us different taste tests, and he brought out the pozole verde. I was like, all right, I'm happy.
Okay,
that's dope, man.
Yeah.
And going back to like the differences between Buffalo and San Diego, did you see any differences in the way like journalism or reporting was conducted? I don't know if there would be any differences between the two areas.
There definitely is, because you got to understand what the stories are being told and what issues are facing each community. Because in San Diego, we're close to the border, so there's going to be a lot of reporting about immigration. There's going to be a lot of reporting about even national politics. When it comes down to it, because the border is, as we see now in the 2024 election, it's one of the top issues for a lot of people, a lot of voters, and for both candidates right now. It's a huge issue. So right now, that's something that I would say is a lot different than Buffalo, because while Buffalo was close to the Canadian border, that conversation about the border itself is nowhere near as heavy as it is here in San Diego, especially because the focus is right now on the U.S.-Mexican border. So there are differences in terms of the stories that we follow and the issues that affect each community. But in terms of the practice itself, it's the same practice of making sure you're informing people correctly and you're telling people about the issues that a community may be facing. You're educating people in the correct way and making sure you're telling them what's true, the basis of what's true and what's not. And also too, in general, you're going to hear a lot about journalists or just the communication field in general. It's about storytelling, and that practice, you will, no matter where you are at, that will never leave you. So it really just depends on where you're at in terms of the actual stories you tell, but in the way you tell them, that will always be
that dictates everything. Yep.
And as a journalist, you obviously interview a lot of people, but if you could interview anyone, who would it be?
Whoa.
Anyone in the world. Think broad.
Anyone.
Anybody. In the world.
You know what? Let's make it a little funner. All time.
Yeah.
All time. Anybody.
Oh, we're going all time.
Yes.
All time.
We're going all time.
All time interview. Ooh, that's tough.
And what would you talk about with them?
You tossing all the parts to it. Honestly, ooh. I will say any presidential candidate or any president that I feel like that's something that anybody would want to do. When you have an opportunity to sit down with the highest position in the United States, that's absolutely incredible. But if I were to seriously, like me personally, I would say you got to say Steph Curry. I mean,
I was like thinking that too. I was like, he's gonna say Steph Curry.
You got to say Steph because I mean, or even if I were to say like in a full group, I would say Steph Curry, Iguodala, and Draymond. Just because one, I watched them growing up. I mean, the peak of Warriors basketball was that 2015 to 2022, them winning it. But it wouldn't even be more so about the actual run itself, because honestly, I got to watch it, and many people have done interviews about the actual storylines of that historic run that they made. But it would more so just be a conversation about basketball itself that I would just love to be able to sit down with them and just myself learn about their perspectives of a play, of how they would approach a team and stuff like that, and just to be able to have that like in-depth X's and O's conversation with them. That would be a dream for me.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, man. If we ever get them, we'll call you right down.
There we go.
Right over, do a
Come on.
joint
They
interview.
used to be up at the school all the time when
I know,
I was
that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. So if we get them
So
back.
I wish I had the opportunity to talk to them a little bit more there, but yeah, no, that would be my dream. Is to
Whatever
talk
happened
to
with
that
that?
lineup of guys.
Yeah, whatever happened.
Whatever happened with
They don't
Curry,
come around
man?
anymore.
What? Can we talk about
Oh,
that? Why
they're
doesn't
in
he
the
come
city
no
now.
more?
They're in the city now, so
He can still
Yeah.
visit
They can
us.
still visit us.
that's
Yeah.
true. That's
They don't
true.
got to worry about gas money.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so how important do you say is like pursuing a career that you find joy, like genuine joy, and like how important is that?
Oh, I mean, if you don't like what you're doing, you're not going to want to do it. That's the bottom line. This job, even as grueling as journalism is, that's one thing that a lot of people, they have a completely different perception of what being on television is, because that's what they think about. You're on television, but the work that actually goes into it, it's a lot different than what people think it is. I mean, just in general, I have my shift right now. I'm the morning reporter, so I wake up at 2 a.m. I'm up having to digest an entire story or a report in a matter of an hour, and I'm getting ready to present that on television to inform people in literally in a matter of a few hours, and then also being able to develop sources and actually be able to do the story correctly. And when you're one-man band in a lot of situations, for like dayside reporters, it's a lot of work that goes into it. You're doing the job sometimes of 2, even 3 people. So while it's all glam that you're on television, there's a lot more work to it. But that's the thing, since I know this is what I wanted to do and I have fun doing it, that's why I'm willing to sacrifice my sleep. I'm willing to sacrifice the long days. I'm willing to sacrifice the holidays. And especially for people if they want to enter journalism, they got to understand that like this job is more than just
not easy.
being on television. You're giving up your holidays. You're coming in working 12-hour days. If there's breaking news, you're coming in and you're sacrificing a lot of time just for yourself. And that's the thing. If you're not willing to do that, then you're not gonna enjoy that job. And that's for any job that you do. If you don't like doing it, you're not gonna actually find any purpose in doing it at all.
So did you say 2 a.m.? Did I hear that correctly? 2 a.m.?
You did hear that correctly.
I don't know.
How does that
That's
sleep
crazy.
schedule work?
Sometimes you just don't sleep. I'll be honest. I mean, there's times I go into work and I can't sleep the night before, and I'm falling asleep at 11, 12 o'clock, and then I'm going off 2 hours to sleep. But I have a job to do. I got to stay disciplined. I got to make sure that I'm coming in and I'm doing the best work that I can. So yeah, it's tough. You don't get used to it, but again, because I enjoy what I'm doing, I'm willing to make that sacrifice.
Yeah,
Does it
that's
feel
so
like-
important that you say that, because a lot of people are more money motivated nowadays, and they don't even care about the career they do as long as it brings so much money. But I'm glad that you're touching up on that and how important it is to do something that you really love. That's something
Exactly.
that's important.
And that's another thing that people have a perception about people on television, like journalists. Oh, they pay you the big bucks to get up early to be on television. This is not a field for the money. Unless you are a top Sports Center anchor or reporter, or you're a top CNN, ABC, the networks, the money is not where people think it is. But because this is the job that I know I love to do, that's why it's worth it.
Yeah, it makes you happy. That's all that matters.
Does it ever even feel like a job for you, or is it just something like you just get up and you get to do just do the thing you love?
There are times that it feels like a job, just like with those long hours. I mean, any job at some point is going to feel like a job. It's not like anything. It's not like all the time. People that are like, oh, it never feels like a job.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have your days that you're struggling with something, or like I have a day that I don't perform the best in the morning and stuff like that, or it's just a day that I'm like, damn, I don't want to get up right now, and I really don't want to have to go to interact with people. So there are times when it feels like a job, but when it comes to the overall scheme of it, in terms of how I get to present the story, and just in terms of the platform and the impact that what we get to do as journalists, how that affects people, how that could affect people's lives, that's what really matters about it.
Yeah. Sorry, a question, it's a little uncorrelated, but did you play any other sports other than basketball at SJD?
I played baseball for a little bit, but that's a whole nother thing. So I'm just gonna.
It didn't work out?
Whole nother thing. It didn't end up working out. So
Alright.
but I'm not mad at it at all. So.
Okay. So we are coming to a little bit of a closing time here, and I do have a fun question for you. Who would you say is your NBA all-time GOAT? And if you were reporting this on live television right now and you had 1 minute to give us your reasoning why, what would you say starting now?
Sam, you didn't give me any time to prepare for that question.
Okay, starting
whenever you're
a couple
ready.
seconds.
Starting now, I'm about to get grilled. You gotta say it. I know there's gonna be this argument about LeBron and MJ. Since I grew up watching more of LeBron and just the longevity that he has had in the game, and the way that he's been able to literally put himself at the top of each statistical category in the league. I mean, it's incredible to see that type of consistency, that type of ability from a player this long in his career. I think ultimately when it comes down to it, we're going to look back. I think LeBron, granted, despite his finals record, I think we're going to look back and say, like, no, LeBron was the best player, because we are not going to see another player that has played with that level of consistency and at that level of greatness for that long in a career.
Yeah. The longevity is crazy.
For sure.
I feel like his competition was higher than Jordan's too. I mean,
Yeah,
he was
Jordan was
the
playing
Warriors,
plumbers, man.
That's the thing. It's a different style. That's why I don't like that argument. Because it's a different style of play compared to what it was. Even the 2000s to 2010s, we saw how much that changed. And the 2000s to the 1990s, it's a lot different style of play. And that's the thing. Jordan dominated his style of play. LeBron, I think, because he has gone through this time where the game changed from being about athleticism to being about shooting, he's been able to last so many different molds of what basketball has become. And I think that's really what makes him so great. Again, you talk about that longevity.
What's your opinion? Who's your GOAT?
Come on. Let me ask you.
I was going to tell him I agree. That's why I'm not going to debate him right now, because I agree. I think LeBron is more the GOAT. I think if MJ was to be put in today's NBA, LeBron would dominate more. I feel like
I don't know.
I don't know about that, because
I don't know.
MJ. That's the MJ was able to score on anybody and everybody.
Well, yeah, but let's look at the players who were playing.
He was doing, like.
But that's the thing.
Was he playing
the game
plumbers?
was definitely detailed more for defense back then than it was for the offensive game. You didn't see that defensive 3 seconds in the key. You didn't see the touch fouls that you saw. So if you see the calls that some of these players get now.
Yeah, a little more sensitive now.
Yeah,
If Jordan knew how to flop, like in today's game, like he's averaging
He averaged 60.
30, like something.
he's averaging 40, 50
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, it's
easy.
insane.
easy.
Who's your primetime squad that you would build? Like all time?
Primetime what?
Squad. NBA
Starting
starting five.
like point guard through center.
Starting five. Curry one.
100%.
I mean, when you have that type of shooting, you can't knock that off of your list. I would say Jordan. I'd say LeBron. I would say Kobe. Even though you have Jordan and Kobe kind of in similar positions, when you have those two with that same mentality that they have, you want to run them together.
Right.
It's that center spot that I feel like would be the most difficult to fill, because there's so many different guys that you can fill into that position. I would probably say, I'd say Kareem.
Kareem.
Okay, that's pretty good.
No, yeah.
Usually people say Shaq.
Are you playing Braun at the
Shaq,
front?
It all depends on what you're looking for in the guy, but And I know Shaq was he was probably a more dominant player
Yeah.
in terms of his play style, because it was all about just that pound for pound in the post. And then obviously Kareem was a little bit more about the finesse. He had the sky hook and stuff like that. So it really all depends on what you're looking for. But
Yeah.
I think all time, if you were to say, I would say Kareem. I mean, when he's scoring like he did and holding the all-time record
Yeah.
with only 2 pointers, that itself is impressive.
Those sky hooks, Coach Lippy loved those sky hooks.
Yes, he did.
When you played, like, what was a player that you kind of maybe replicated your game after, or who you saw a lot of yourself in, maybe?
Growing up, my inspiration was Dirk. I loved
Dirk.
watching Dirk and his agility in the post, and just his ability to be able to extend it outside and kind of have that full in and out game. That's really, I feel like, where I tried to tailor my game to a little bit. Granted, because of like positions and who we had on the team, it was a little bit harder to do that during my time at SJD.
Yeah.
To be able to play that inside out game. But when it came down to it, I mean, even when I go hoop now, it's like kind of that mix of playing inside, playing outside. And Dirk, I think when you talk about having a full inside out game amongst players in the league, probably in league history, Dirk is a prime example of that, because he was the one that started the trend of 7-footers coming outside and being able to work their way in the post and then back outside and pulling up from 3 and stuff like that. So I think Dirk, when it comes to the influence of the game, I feel like he deserves a lot more credit for that because of his ability to play inside and out.
Yeah, I don't hear that argument too often, so for sure.
Not really. I had a question though. What is your favorite type of story to cover? It's probably sports because we've been talking about that for the last hour, but.
Yeah, I mean, sports is fun. I mean, when you get to do, especially since that's something that I could talk about just on like anytime, anywhere. Sports is always fun. I would say breaking news has got to be the most fun, because that's the most adrenaline. That's the most like, all right, like you're having to gather everything in a matter of minutes when it comes to happening, and it's just that rush of just something new that happens. You have no background knowledge of it. You don't know what's happening, and it's just a matter of like, all right, trying to contact as many people as you can, trying to talk to as many people as you can in a matter of a minute, and just being able to have kind of that first part of the reporting when you're the first person there at a scene, and being able to report what's happening first, whether it's a fire, whether it's a shooting. I've covered more fires than I have shootings. I haven't covered too many shootings or any type of stuff like that. But just kind of that rush of breaking news, it is so fun to be able to do, because you all of a sudden, like, it's just a straight pivot from what you were originally planning, and you're just going to dive into a whole new mindset of trying to pick up everything that you can report to people, and just that rush of it, it's so fun to be able to do.
Do you have like a specific favorite news that you broke?
I don't have any news that I broke, like a top story or anything like that, which I'm hoping eventually that's something that I can do in breaking those types of stories. But the one that I'll never forget, especially being this early in my career, was last year. Even though I wasn't necessarily out in the field reporting about it, I just remember the craze that went into the newsroom was the explosion that happened at the Rainbow Bridge in Niagara Falls last year. It was a holiday weekend. It was the day before a holiday, the day before Thanksgiving. There's supposed to be record amount of travel, people coming into the United States to enjoy themselves during the holiday, people traveling out of the country as well. And especially Niagara Falls being such a high tourist area, all of a sudden there's an explosion on the bridge that nobody could kind of figure out how it happened or what happened. There's a lot of first initial thoughts of like, okay, what is going on here? But the thing about it is, we couldn't initially, a lot of people they had their opinions, and you saw people on social media, they immediately went out like, oh, terrorists. But that's the thing, you can't initially say that. That's not what our job is. Our job isn't for what our opinion is. Our job is being able to gather the facts that we need to gather in order to tell people what's actually happening. And I just remember the craze that the newsroom went into, because at first it was like, oh, something happened at the Rainbow Bridge. Okay, then we learned it was an explosion. Then we learned like about how the car came. At first we were hearing about what happened to the car and how it came in. And at first we were like, okay, hold on. That first initial thought comes in, but we're like, we got to figure out what's happening. And just how the whole newsroom just dove in to making sure we knew what was happening and trying to gather as much information as possible. It just becomes a whole hands on deck effort by the newsroom, and even my role just going on to social media, seeing what we could find about people, whether it's videos about people that were actually there. Just that rush of being able to compile it, and especially with that too, all of a sudden it became a national story. So that's like when you have the whole nation's eyes on this, that's when it really became fun.
Yeah, I have another question. This sort of just popped up in my head and I'm curious. Have you ever had to cover stories or like topics that almost felt personal to you, or like that you had some sort of personal connection to, and like did that sort of, when you had to present those, did it throw you off your game a little bit, or how did that feel, if there was?
The job, a lot of times, everybody has their own opinions on anything. I mean, especially too, you're thinking the biggest story right now is the presidential election.
Yeah.
You have, like, everybody has their own political beliefs, everybody has their own moral beliefs, everybody has any sort of belief that they may have about whatever topic it may be. But because we know we have a job to do, and that job is to inform and educate people, we have to do it. We have to put those personal beliefs aside. Yeah. And there are opportunities where we get to do stories that we may have a little bit more personal connection with, that we can present it. Even just a simple story, it's like when you're using your experiences, my experience as a college student, and my experience of applying to FAFSA. Last year, there was a whole fiasco of the FAFSA application, in terms of the date that it released and people not being able to access it, and then schools getting it to, or the Department of Education getting the applications back to schools late. I understood how that whole process worked because I was just in college. So I was able to kind of gather some of my own personal experience and toss that into my reporting, because I understood how frustrated it was when it came to doing that application and trying to receive financial aid in school. So, and that was one story that I remember I was kind of able to follow up with, to kind of just talk about the struggles that some of these families are facing right now, since they don't know what their financial aid is going to be. And a lot of students, that's how they decide what school they go to, is how much financial aid are they going to get. And with that delay happening, I was able to kind of talk a little bit more about what this impact is and what can people, of not knowing how is this impacting families, and also too knowing what those next steps are that families can, should, and need to take. So that's one story that I could think of where I was able to kind of pull some of my own experiences out and report with it. But when it comes to actual beliefs and opinions, you have to do your best to put it away, because when we're presenting this information, we have to put it in a way that tells the true story of what is happening. And ultimately, if your beliefs do not align with what may be happening in that story, then you're not going to be telling the story in its full manner and how it needs to be. So we have to put away our own personal beliefs a lot. But also too, that's why people trust us, is because we are able to do that. We're able to tell the story for how it is.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know how you guys do that. I feel like the urge for me to just share my opinion, I'll just instantly be like, screw this, and I'm just saying whatever I want. I'll say that on live television. Does that urge ever ick you a little bit?
It can a little bit, but when you know what your job is at hand, and knowing that it's about making sure that people know the true facts, people know what is happening, that's what you got to make sure of. Because that's the thing, because of the platform that journalists have, people look to us as that first source of information. We are the landline to people knowing what is happening in their city, in their community, around the country. So if we're presenting it in a way that may be flawed at all, then we're not telling the story for how it is. And that's the thing, since we have that platform to actually influence people in a way that they may think, that's why we have to keep our personal beliefs aside, because we can't tell a story in a way that may sway people into thinking something else, when that way may not be telling the full picture.
That's just crazy, man. You get to do all that. It's just crazy to me. Like
the self-control.
It is, because because that's the thing. A lot of people, you think of those narratives. That's a huge thing that I know you guys kind of told me a little bit about kind of what we're going to talk about today. And I know we didn't bring this up, but kind of like you mentioned a question about the sensationalization of some stories and how it could affect like people's view. That's a prime example of like, if you're telling stories where it's narrative based and it is based on an opinion and based on again, that narrative or what the rhetoric is, that can completely dissuade how people view an individual, or especially in sports, a team. And that's dangerous.
Do you see that a lot firsthand? Do you have firsthand accounts of that? Like just a lot of bias in reporting?
You don't see it so much in local news. You don't see it so much in general news itself, but in sports news, you see that sports media, especially on the national scale, you see that a lot, unfortunately. And in my opinion, I feel like a lot of sports journalism on the national landscape has turned all about into rhetoric. It's turned a lot about narratives. It's a lot about talking points rather than actually telling the story at hand and actually educating people about what happened in the game. I think a prime example of that I can remember, especially the WNBA, that's been a huge issue with the way that it's been reported, because all talking point and every story that that we've seen come out of a lot of national outlets has been focused on one person, even if they are not involved with the story. Caitlin Clark. Yeah. She is a hell of an athlete. She really has taken the game to a whole new level in its popularity and its viewership and the recognition that it's getting. But when you see national outlets continuously bringing her name up in a story that has absolutely nothing to do with her, then that's where you're failing, because you're not telling the full story. You're thinking that if her name pops up, that's the click that you're going to get. No, that's not how it should be. You need to tell the story and for how it happened, and actually educate the people in a way that is going to paint the full picture of how something happened. And the most recent thing, and I remember it actually kind of ticked me off, was the Aces Liberty series, when Sabrina Ionescu is one of the most talented ball players in the WNBA right now, and she has been since her high school career, actually back at Naramani. The article talked about her getting the Caitlin Clark treatment. That's not the mindset that the Aces went into when they're coming in to guard her. The idea was not, okay, we need to guard her like Caitlin Clark, because she could go, no. And that's what kind of is dangerous about talking about or presenting a story in a way that's only about a talking point or a certain narrative, because it doesn't actually tell what that story is. And to me, that was very misleading for people. And that was just very irresponsible, in my opinion, for people, or for whoever that writer was, to present it that way, because I can almost guarantee you that's not the approach that the Aces went into the game to guard Sabrina. And that's the thing. When you're trying to compare Sabrina to Caitlin and kind of downplay Sabrina's ability because of Caitlin's game, then you're not actually telling the full story of Sabrina as well. She is a dangerous player in and of herself. Yeah. So the Aces are coming in. How are we going to lock her down? That's what their game plan is. Even though they have similarities in their game, they both are able to create and do different things on the court. So to consistently have stories relate back to one player, that's not actually telling the full story.
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
Is that Libby behind y'all?
Yeah, it is.
That's Coach Libby.
Go!
Come say hi. We got Adam Campos on.
Adam Campos.
He's on the way.
He's on his way over here.
I saw him walking back earlier, so I was like,
yeah, I'll give him my headphones.
I can't really. It's staticky.
What's up, Coach? He's right there.
What's up, Coach?
What's up?
Here, put these on.
We sit empty.
What did unplug? What?
Grayson, you want to give him a Here, Coach, you can sit down.
Oh, really?
We were talking about you, Coach Lip.
Adam, I thought you'd be on CNN by now.
I'm sick. I wish I could, Coach.
What are we doing here? Why you don't go here anymore?
I know, but I can't come back and start talking young football.
You just
and that whole team and I'll be about it.
You've already done your podcast?
Mm-hmm. We did get it right now, and like I said, we started the conversation off talking about that 2016 championship team. I remember we were not the most athletic, most talented at all, but damn, do we know how to fight.
Especially you.
Especially, I was not the most athletic at all, but you brought in unathletic 6'4" freshman to start on your team. Like, you trust him enough. And you got a blind guy in the corner playing on the wing with Avery. You got another unathletic white guy backing you up and going with Jack. Damn, all the odds were stacked up against us. But man, did we get it done.
How about the layup you made from the corner?
That's what I told him about.
Oh, man. Huge.
What's your favorite memory from Adam, Coach Lippy?
When he was in the 6th grade.
When he was in the 6th grade.
He used to come here in the 6th grade. For some reason, somebody likes our school, or why did you want to come to St. Joe?
Fred,
Fred, that's right.
He's the one that told me about and the program there. So that's what piqued my interest. So
yeah, he's the same size now as he was in the 6th grade.
Really?
Which is sad. I stopped growing.
6'4".
He's going to be a monster.
I stopped growing. So. I'll never. I should have mentioned it in the podcast, but I'll never forget. It was one of my visits to SCD when he was telling me, like, hey, come on over here. He was like, hey, do you know your ring size? And I was like, oh, he asked me about my ring size for it. And he tells me, like, hey, you're gonna need to know that if you come here and you play for me. I will never forget that. He told me that before he got to the floor, before I had to do out some of that SCD.
You still have
that ended up being, and then we won my freshman year, and that ended up being my senior quote, because I would never forget that. He told me right in front of my parents. We were right across the street from the gym, and we were getting ready to leave. And that was one of the last things he told me before, like, I kind of was getting ready to decide. He said, you're going to need to know your ring size.
And you still have it, right?
I still have my ring, right? It's up in my ring. So,
wow.
That's hell of fun.
This is good.
Full circle moment, right, Coach?
Was that?
Full circle moment.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's good. Because I remember I went to, when you played the 8th grade, I went to see your 8th grade game. And I saw
scouting.
And the parking lot, the Salesian band was there. I said, what's the Salesian band doing here? The whole staff was there watching him.
Really?
And I didn't feel that bad. I always don't like to go into those places. But they got their van outside, for God's sakes. So, yeah, I forget who you were playing, but, yeah.
We were, I forget, it was a lot of freedom. I remember, it was 2 out of 10.
Yeah.
A lot of freedom. So, yeah, that's crazy. And now here we are.
Yeah.
How you doing, Coach? What's going on?
I'm doing well. This thing opened up, and it's 40 steps away from the house.
I thought it was 97.
92, whatever it is. I don't know what number. It changes when you get older. Your steps are shorter. So that's why I walk like this.
Right. You're not on the court or play point guard anymore. Or play defense in 2-3.
Oh, I can still play defense.
You can still stand?
Yeah. Yeah. And so the kids from Akalani's, they send me cards, and the thing that they said was, Coach will never forget the refuse to lose attitude. And so, Akalani's, that's the school I was at last year.
Oh, you were coaching at Akalani?
Yeah. As assistant coach.
You just couldn't give it up, did you?
No, about 15 minutes. I said, wait a minute, what am I doing this for? Yeah, no, it's in my blood. It's in my blood. Yeah.
Man, that's what we'll always appreciate about you. Appreciate you. Because you, no matter what it was, you were always up supporting us. You were always up making sure that we were being taken care of, and you treated us like your own kids, and that's something that we will never forget about you. It's always got to show thanks to you.
And you were a big kid.
Very big kid. I know. I remember that.
Oh,
are you helping out coach this year?
Yeah. So John Musa was my assistant for 17 years. Now I'm going to be his assistant. Not for 17 years because I'll be dead by then.
That's awesome. It's funny to see you on.
Yeah.
So you involved me.
Yeah, nice to see you, Adam. I gotta get this. I gotta get this thing open up.
Thank you, Coach Lippy.
Good luck to you. Good luck to you the rest of the way.
Thank you. Tell the family I said hello.
I will definitely do that. You made my day today. See you, buddy.
You made mine, Coach.
Okay.
Well, all right. Thank you again, Adam, for coming on. We really appreciate it. And make sure you let us know the next time you're around town. We want to for sure get in touch with you and meet you. And even we're doing this tradition where we have our special guests sign the wall. So we would love to have you do that here in the gym, in our weight room. So we would love to have you do that.
You got Cooper Terry. He's done it so far, but
I think that was cool that y'all got Cooper to do it. But I mean, him especially, he's doing now. It's crazy. So
So yeah, when you're around,
they
man.
are able to do it.
Yeah, so
And-
let
and
us
even
know
then,
when you're in
y'all-
town.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be back. I know I'll be back. Thanksgiving kind of quick. Christmas, I'll be here for a little bit extended of the time. But for Christmas, you guys want to meet up, kind of just talk a little bit more about the
That'd be
podcast
awesome,
or
dude.
anything like that. And if there's anything you want me to look over with the podcast as well, especially to let me know. And then if you want me to set some things in that.
For sure. Thank you so
Alright,
much
thank you so
again. It was a
much.
pleasure.
Absolutely, y'all.
Okay,
Take care.
have a good one.
See ya.
Take care.
Thanks for making it this far in the video. We hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you guys later. Pieces.
Oh,